The first time a child asked me if I was the man mommy talks about, I was kneeling in a grocery store parking lot with jumper cables in my hand, a carton of eggs sweating beside my boot, and absolutely no idea I had been living in someone else's heart for months. Her little girl couldn't have been more than 6. She had one hand wrapped around a stuffed purple dinosaur and the other pressed against her mother's coat like she was keeping her from floating away. Her eyes were huge, serious, and brutally honest in the way only kids can be. "Are you the man mommy talks about?" The woman beside her went completely still. Then she looked away and blushed so hard I forgot how batteries worked. "My name is Miles Turner." I was 32 then, and I managed the night shift at a distribution warehouse outside Columbus. Not glamorous, but steady. I liked steady. Trucks came in, trucks went out. Inventory either matched or it didn't. Problems had barcodes, people were harder. I'd gotten good at being quiet. After my father left when I was 14, my mother used to say, "Miles, you don't have to fix every silence." I misunderstood that advice and spent the next 18 years becoming a man who let silence do most of the talking. That Saturday afternoon, I'd stopped at Harlow's Market after sleeping 4 hours because my fridge contained mustard, a sad lemon, and the kind of takeout container you don't open unless you're ready to meet God. It was early November, cold enough to make everyone walk fast, gray enough to make the whole parking lot look like it had given up. That's when I saw her. A woman in a camel-colored coat stood beside a silver Honda with its hood up, one hand on her hip, the other holding her phone to her ear. Her hair was dark and loose around her face, the wind pushing strands across her mouth. She kept trying to sound calm, but I could hear the edge in her voice even from 3 parking spaces away. "No, it's okay. I'll figure it out." "No, don't leave work, please. I said I'll figure it out." The little girl stood near the passenger door, hugging the dinosaur and watching shoppers pass like every adult in the world had somewhere better to be. I almost kept walking. That's the honest part. Not because I didn't care. Because helping meant entering someone's life, even for 5 minutes. It meant being seen. It meant possibly getting that look some women gave men alone in parking lots. Careful, guarded, ready to say no before you finish the question. So I held up my hands a little before I got close. "Hey," I said. "I'm not trying to bother you. I've got jumper cables in my truck if it's the battery." She turned, and for half a second her face changed. Recognition. Not the polite kind. Not the "do I know you from somewhere" kind. The kind that made me feel like I'd walked into the middle of a conversation I hadn't known existed. "Oh," she said softly. "Hi." I blinked. "Hi." Then she seemed to catch herself and straightened. "Sorry, yes, I mean, thank you. It just clicked when I tried to leave. I'm pretty sure it's the battery." The little girl leaned around her mother's side and stared at me. I smiled because kids usually deserve the first honest thing in a room. "And who's this?" Her mother opened her mouth, but the girl answered first. "I'm Nora. This is Pickle." She lifted the dinosaur. "He doesn't like strangers." "Smart dinosaur," I said. Nora studied me. "He says you look okay." That's high praise. Her mother laughed, and that laugh hit me with embarrassing force. Warm, surprised, a little tired, like she didn't get to use it as often as she should. "I'm Claire," she said. "Claire Bennett." Her name fit her. Clear eyes, soft voice. The kind of woman who looked capable because she had no choice, but still had this gentleness around the edges that made you want to stand closer and be careful at the same time. I grabbed my cables from my truck and pulled around to face her car. Claire apologized 3 times while I hooked everything up. "You can stop apologizing," I said. "My truck has been waiting its whole life to feel useful." She smiled. "Does your truck have self-esteem issues?" "It's a 2009 Ford with one working speaker. Of course it does." That got another laugh from her, and I felt a ridiculous sense of victory. The engine caught on, the second try. Claire exhaled like she'd been holding her breath since breakfast. "Thank you, Miles." My hand froze on the clamp. I hadn't told her my name. She noticed the second I noticed. Color rose up her neck. I... That was when Nora stepped forward, still clutching Pickle, and asked the question that turned the whole afternoon sideways. Are you the man Mommy talks about? Claire closed her eyes. I looked from Nora to Claire, then back to Nora. Depends, I said carefully. What does Mommy say? Nora tilted her head, thinking hard. Claire whispered, Nora, sweetheart. But kids are not built for mercy. She says you're quiet, Nora said, and kind. And you always let old Mrs. Alvarez go first at the coffee place, even when you're late. She looked at my boots. And she said your eyes are sad but nice. The parking lot seemed to lose sound. Claire stared at the pavement like it might open up and save her. I should have said something smooth, something charming, something a man in a movie would say before the music swelled. Instead, I held a dead jumper cable and said, You noticed me? Claire lifted her face then, still blushing, still embarrassed, but not hiding anymore. Yes, she said. For months. Then her phone buzzed in her hand and whatever softness had been there vanished the second she looked at the screen. I saw one word before she turned it away. Again. And when her eyes came back to mine, they weren't embarrassed anymore. They were scared. Claire silenced the call so fast it made me think she'd done it many times before. Too many. Nora, though, noticed everything. Her small shoulders lifted toward her ears and the purple dinosaur disappeared halfway into her coat. Is it him? She whispered. Claire's face tightened. That told me enough to stop being polite. You don't have to answer that, I said. She gave me a quick look, half grateful and half ashamed, like needing help had become something she was used to apologizing for. It's my ex-husband, she said quietly. Nora looked at me. He yells. Nora, Claire murmured. He does, Nora insisted, not bratty, not dramatic. Just stating a fact the way another child might say the sky was cloudy. He says Mommy makes him mad. Something old and cold moved through my chest. My father used to say things like that. He'd slam cabinets and call it frustration. He'd disappear for 2 days and call it needing space. He'd make my mother cry and call it her fault. I kept my voice even. That's not how grown men are supposed to talk. Claire looked away again, but this time it wasn't from embarrassment. Her phone buzzed once more. A message. She didn't open it. I'm sorry, she said. You fixed my car and now I'm making this strange. You're not. I am. You're not, I repeated, softer. Strange would be if Pickle started the car. Nora peered down at the dinosaur. He can't. His legs are too short. That's probably for the best. His insurance would be terrible. A tiny smile broke through her worry. Claire watched that smile like it was water in the desert. Then she looked at me, and I understood why she'd been talking about me for months but never approached. She was tired in a way sleep didn't fix. Careful in a way life had taught her to be. Whatever feelings she'd had from a distance, they were tucked behind survival. I should go, she said, before the battery dies again. Right. I stepped back and removed the cables. You'll want to drive it for at least 20 minutes. If it doesn't start later, it's probably time for a new battery. She nodded. Thank you, really. I wanted to ask where she was going. I wanted to ask if she was safe. I wanted to ask why her daughter recognized a man from a coffee shop her mother had apparently been quietly admiring. But there is a line between kindness and intrusion. I only said, Do you have someone you can call if you need help? The question landed heavily. Claire opened the driver's door, then paused. My sister lives 40 minutes away, she said. She helps when she can. But I try not to. She didn't finish. Try not to be a burden. I knew that sentence. I'd lived in it. I pulled a receipt from my grocery bag and found a pen in my glove compartment. Then I wrote my number down before I could overthink. You don't have to use this, I said, handing it to her. But if the car won't start, or if you need someone to look at the battery, you can call. No pressure. She stared at the paper. For one terrifying second, I thought I'd misread everything. Then she took it carefully, like it was fragile. Thank you, Miles. There it was again, my name in her mouth, familiar before we were. Nora climbed into the back seat and buckled Pickle beside her. Before Claire got in, the little girl rolled down her window. Mommy said you drink coffee with no sugar, she announced. Claire made a helpless sound. Nora. I looked at Claire, trying not to smile too much. That true? Her cheeks flushed again. It's possible I mentioned it. And my sad eyes? She covered her face with one hand. I'm never speaking again. Nora leaned closer to the window. She also said you have nice hands. Nora Bennett. That did it. I laughed, really laughed, loud enough that an older man loading groceries 2 cars over looked at us. Claire was mortified, but beneath it, beneath the red cheeks and the hand over her eyes, she was smiling. And for a moment, the fear was gone. Then the phone buzzed again. The smile disappeared like someone had turned off a light. I saw her fingers tighten around the steering wheel. Drive safe, I said. She nodded. You too. She pulled out of the parking space slowly, the Honda rattling a little as it went. Nora twisted in her seat to wave at me with Pickle's tiny purple arm. I waved back until they turned out of the lot. Only then did I look down and realize I'd left my eggs sitting on the asphalt. 3 were cracked. I should have gone home. I should have made dinner, slept another few hours, and let the whole strange afternoon become one of those passing moments you think about sometimes but never touch again. Instead, I sat in my truck for 10 minutes with my hands on the wheel. Claire Bennett knew my name. She knew my coffee order. She had told her daughter I was kind, and someone named again kept calling her until she looked afraid. At 8:17 that night, my phone rang from a number I didn't know. I answered on the second ring. For a moment, there was only static and breathing. Then Claire whispered, Miles? I sat up straight. What happened? Her voice broke on the next words. I'm sorry, I didn't know who else to call. I was already reaching for my keys. Where are you? I asked. There was a pause, then a small, muffled sound, like she had covered the phone and was trying not to cry where someone might hear. Home, Claire said. We're home, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have called. Claire. She went quiet. You called for a reason. Another silence, then smaller. He's outside. My hand stopped on the doorknob. Your ex? Yes. Is he trying to get in? Not yet. He's in the driveway. He keeps texting that he wants to talk. He doesn't have Nora tonight. It's not his weekend, but he saw us at the grocery store. I felt my jaw tighten. Us? He must have been there or followed us. I don't know. Her breath shook. He sent a picture of you standing by my car. For 1 second, the whole room seemed to narrow around that sentence. What does he want? To know who you are. And what did you tell him? Nothing. Outside my apartment window, traffic hissed over wet pavement. Inside, my pulse sounded too loud. Have you called the police? I asked. He hasn't done anything. Not technically. The bitterness in her voice was quiet but deep. That's what they always say. I knew better than to argue with her fear. Are the doors locked? Yes. Windows? Yes. Where's Nora? Asleep, I think. You think? She's pretending. She always pretends when he comes by. That did something to me I didn't have words for. I lowered my voice. Listen to me. If he tries the door, if he threatens you, if he even touches the house, you call 911. Not me first, them. Okay? I'm coming over. No. It came out too fast. Miles, no, that'll make it worse. Maybe, I said. But you shouldn't be alone. I don't want you dragged into this. I think he already dragged me in when he took my picture. She didn't answer. Claire, I'm not coming to fight him. I'm coming to sit outside where someone else can see what he does. Her breath hitched. Why would you do that? The honest answer was too big for a phone call with a frightened woman I had officially met 6 hours earlier. So I gave her the simplest piece of it. Because your daughter asked if I was kind. I heard the tiniest sound then. Not quite a sob, not quite a laugh. Something broken trying not to be. She gave me her address. 15 minutes later, I turned onto a narrow street lined with small houses and bare trees. Claire's place was a white bungalow with a porch light glowing over a pumpkin Nora must have decorated with stickers. A dark pickup sat crooked in the driveway behind her Honda, blocking it in. A man stood near the porch steps. He was taller than me, broad in the shoulders, wearing a work jacket and the restless anger of someone looking for permission to use it. His head turned when my headlights swept over him. I parked at the curb, left the engine running, and stepped out with my phone in my hand. He walked toward me before I made it around the hood. "You Miles?" he called. I didn't answer the way he wanted. "You're blocking her car." He laughed once, no humor. "You the mechanic now?" "No." "What are you then?" Across the street, a curtain shifted. Good. Someone was watching. I kept my voice level. A witness. That wiped some of the smirk off his face. He took another step closer. "You don't know anything about me and my wife." "Ex-wife." His eyes sharpened. "She tell you that?" "She didn't have to." For a moment, I thought he might swing. His hands flexed. His breath fogged in the cold. Then the front door opened a few inches. Claire stood behind the chain, pale in the porch light. "Travis, leave," she said. So that was his name. He turned toward her, and his entire voice changed. Softer. Poison dressed up as concern. "Come on, Claire, I just want to talk. You got some guy showing up here at night now, around my kid?" "Our daughter is asleep," she said, "and you need to leave." "Our daughter," he repeated, like the words belonged to him more. "You think this looks good for court?" Claire flinched. I saw it. So did he. That was what men like Travis looked for, tiny cracks where fear got in. I lifted my phone. "I'm recording now." His head snapped back to me. "You better not." "I am." "You don't have my permission. You're standing in a public view, threatening a woman at her home." "I'm comfortable with it." He took 2 hard steps toward me. The porch door opened wider. "Travis!" Upstairs, a light clicked on. A small face appeared behind the living room curtain. Nora. She was holding Pickle against her chest. Travis saw her too. For half a second, shame passed over his face. Then pride killed it. He pointed at me. "This isn't over." "No," Claire said, voice trembling but clear. "It is for tonight." Maybe it was the neighbor watching. Maybe it was my phone. Maybe it was Nora's face in the window. Whatever it was, Travis finally backed toward his truck. He slammed the door hard enough to shake the porch railing, reversed out of the driveway, and tore down the street. None of us moved until his taillights disappeared. Then Claire closed the door. I stood by my truck, heart pounding, hands cold. After a minute, the porch light flickered twice. My phone buzzed. "Claire, can you wait there a little while?" I looked up. Behind the curtain, Nora lifted Pickle's purple arm in a tiny wave. I texted back, "As long as you need." And I meant it. I stayed in my truck for 2 hours. The heater only worked when it felt like it, so I sat with my coat zipped to my chin, watching the quiet street through a windshield filmed with mist. Every passing set of headlights made my body tense until it moved on. At 10:43, Claire's front door opened. She stepped onto the porch in thick socks and a sweater too big for her, arms folded against the cold. For a second, she just stood there under the yellow porch light, looking smaller than she had in the parking lot. Then she walked down the path toward my truck. I got out before she reached the curb. "You don't have to come outside," I said. "I know." Her voice was tired. "I wanted to." We stood a few feet apart in the dark, both of us pretending the air wasn't full of things too complicated to name. "Nora fell asleep for real," she said. "On the couch. Pickle is on guard duty." "Good dinosaur." "The best." A car rolled by slowly. Claire stiffened until it passed. I hated that. Hated how fear had trained her body to respond before her mind could. "Did he text again?" I asked. She nodded. 9 times. Then nothing. "Do you have a protective order?" Her mouth tightened. "I tried." That answer told a whole story in 3 words. "He never hit me," she continued as if she had to explain. "Not in the way people mean when they ask. But he threw things. Punched walls, took my keys, followed me, called my job, told everyone I was unstable." She swallowed. "By the time I left, I barely trusted my own memory." "You don't have to justify being afraid." Claire looked at me then, really looked. The porch light caught the wet shine in her eyes, and for a second I saw the woman from the coffee shop I apparently never noticed noticing me. Not just a mother, not just someone's ex. A woman who had carried too much, too quietly, and still laughed at jokes about trucks with self-esteem issues. I used to see you at Bellamy Coffee, she said, and I figured. I'd go after school drop-off before work. You were usually at the corner table with the black travel mug. That was me. You always held the door, not just for pretty women. For everybody. Old men, delivery drivers, teenagers staring at their phones. She gave a small, embarrassed shrug. One morning, Mrs. Alvarez dropped her change everywhere, and people stepped around her. You got down on the floor in your work jacket and picked up every coin. I remembered the old woman. I remembered being late. I didn't remember Claire watching. Nora asked why I smiled when we passed the coffee shop, she said, so I told her there was a man there who reminded me good men still existed. My throat tightened. I had spent years thinking quiet meant invisible. Turns out sometimes quiet was where people put their hope. I'm not sure I deserve that much credit, I said. Maybe not. Her smile trembled. But I needed to believe it. The wind moved between us. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked once and stopped. I wanted to step closer. I didn't. Claire had enough men in her life deciding what space they were entitled to. So I stayed where I was and said, "What do you need tonight?" She looked surprised by the question, then exhausted by it. "I don't know." "That's okay." "No, it isn't." She pressed her fingers against her forehead. "I should know. I'm her mother. I should have a plan. I should be stronger. You got your daughter safe. You locked the door. You called someone. That is a plan." "I called a stranger." "You called the man Mommy talks about," I said gently. A laugh slipped out of her before she could stop it. Then she covered her mouth, crying and smiling at the same time. I may never recover from that. For what it's worth, Nice Hands was my favorite part. Oh my gosh. She turned away, blushing even in the dark. Please forget that. Absolutely not. For a moment, the fear loosened again. Then her phone lit up in her hand. Not a call, a message. She read it and all the color drained from her face. I didn't ask to see it. She handed it to me anyway. A photo filled the screen. Nora on the playground at school, taken from behind the fence. Below it, Travis had written, "You don't get to replace me." My blood went cold. "This was today," Claire whispered. "She wore that coat today." I looked toward the sleeping house, then down the empty street where his truck had disappeared. The line had moved. This wasn't just a man angry in a driveway anymore. "Claire," I said carefully, "we need to call the police now." She nodded, but her hand was shaking so badly she couldn't unlock the phone. I took one step closer and held out my palm. She placed the phone in my hand. Our fingers touched for barely a second. It wasn't romantic. Not then. It was trust, raw and terrified. And somehow, that felt even more dangerous. The police came 20 minutes later. Not fast enough for fear. Fast enough for paperwork. Claire sat on the couch with Nora asleep against her side, one small fist still tangled in her mother's sweater. I stood near the front window while two officers looked at the messages, the photo, the call log. This time. No one said Travis hadn't done anything. A picture of a child taken outside her school changed the room. Claire answered every question in a voice so steady I knew it was costing her. When she faltered, Nora stirred, and Claire's hand immediately went to her daughter's hair. "I'm okay, baby," she whispered. But she wasn't. Not yet. By morning, her sister came with a duffel bag and a fury that could have powered the whole street. Claire and Nora left with her before sunrise. I watched them pack from the porch, feeling suddenly useless now that there were officers, forms, family, procedures. At the car, Nora ran back to me in pink boots and pajamas under her coat. She hugged my leg. "You scared him away," she said into my jeans. I looked down at the top of her head, at the purple dinosaur tucked beneath her arm. "No," I said. "Your mom did that." I just stood where people could see. Nora considered this seriously. Pickle helped too. Pickle was essential. Claire stood by her sister's car, eyes red, face tired, but something in her posture had changed. She wasn't shrinking from the world. Not that morning. She walked over after Nora climbed in. I don't know how to thank you, she said. You don't have to. I do. Then get safe, I said. That's enough. Her eyes filled, but she nodded. For 3 weeks, I didn't see her except through brief texts. The protective order was granted. Travis lost unsupervised visitation while the school added security instructions. Claire stayed with her sister, then moved into a small apartment across town with better locks, brighter windows, and a playground visible from the kitchen. She texted me updates because I asked for them, and because eventually she stopped apologizing for needing someone to care. Then, one cold morning in December, I walked into Bellamy Coffee and found her at my corner table. 2 cups sat between us, one black, one with too much foam and cinnamon. Claire looked nervous enough to bolt. I didn't know if this was okay, she said. I took off my gloves slowly. You bought my coffee. I know your order. I've heard rumors. She smiled, and this time it didn't vanish. We didn't fall in love all at once. Real love, I learned, is less like lightning and more like someone leaving a porch light on. It was coffee once a week. Then Saturday walks with Nora racing ahead on her scooter. It was me fixing a loose cabinet door while Claire pretended not to watch my hands, and then turned bright red when Nora said, Mommy, you're doing the face. It was court dates, bad nights, good mornings. The first time Claire gave me a key, she cried in the hallway for 10 minutes, because trust still felt like standing too close to a ledge. I waited. Not perfectly. No one does. But willingly. 6 months later, Travis moved 2 states away after violating the order twice and finally learning there were consequences he couldn't charm, threaten, or blame on someone else. A year after that night, Claire and Nora moved into my house. Nora insisted Pickle needed his own room. We compromised with a chair by the window. On the first morning, I woke before sunrise and found Claire in the kitchen, wearing my old warehouse sweatshirt, making pancakes badly, and humming like she didn't realize she was doing it. Nora sat at the table drawing 3 stick figures and 1 purple dinosaur in front of a house with smoke curling from the chimney. What's that? I asked. Our family, she said. Claire froze at the stove. I looked at her. She looked at me. No one corrected the child. 2 years after the grocery store parking lot, I married the woman who had noticed me before I noticed myself. Nora stood between us in a yellow dress, holding the rings in a tiny velvet bag while Pickle watched from the front row, propped respectfully beside Claire's sister. When the officiant asked who supported this marriage, Nora raised her hand and said, Me and Pickle knew first. Everyone laughed. Claire cried. I did too, a little, though I blamed the wind. That evening, after the guests left and the yard was littered with paper cups and flower petals, I found Claire on the porch swing. Nora was asleep inside, one shoe still on, Pickle tucked under her chin. Claire leaned her head on my shoulder. Do you ever think about that day? She asked. The car battery? The question. I smiled into the dark. Every day. She slipped her hand into mine. I was so embarrassed. I was terrified. Of me? Of being seen. Claire turned my hand over and traced my palm with her thumb. You were always seen, Miles, she whispered. You just didn't know somebody was grateful. Inside the house, Nora laughed in her sleep. The porch light glowed over the steps. Our wedding flowers moved gently in the night air. And beside the door, in the window, where a frightened little girl had once waved a purple dinosaur at me, Pickle sat facing the street like a tiny guardian of everything we had survived to become. What would you have done if something like her little girl asked, Are you the man Mommy talks about? Then she looked away and blushed. Happened to you? And have you ever mistaken kindness for something your heart was too afraid to name? Tell me your story in the comments. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.